National anthem.
Arise, O compatriots, Nigeria's call obey, to serve our fatherland with love and strength and faith. The labor of our heroes thus shall never be in vain, to serve with heart and might, one nation bound in freedom, peace and unity. Brave Lutherans, brave Lutherans, ever of technology. Futa, land of nation, land man. Futa, for national progress. Academic excellence is our tradition. Technology for self-reliance. Self-reliance, yes. Self-reliance, yes. Promoting of unity, not courtesy, championing the cause of technology. Futa, the shining example. Futa, the pride of Nigeria. With the blessings on our side, we shall go places. Futa, for self-reliance.
Please let us all be seated. To the glory of God Almighty, we are all welcome to the first inaugural lecture in the year 2024 and 163 series of the Federal University of Technology, Akure, to be delivered by Professor Abraham Adeniyi Taiwo, titled Sustainable Housing for All Through Public-Private Partnerships, Myths Our Reality. To this end, we have in our midst the leaders of our academic community under the chairmanship of the Vice Chancellor, Professor Adeniyi Taiwo, or Ladiji, FAS. You are welcome, ma'am. To be supported by other principal officers, the Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic, Professor T.T. Amos. You are welcome, sir. The Deputy Vice Chancellor Development, Professor S.S. Oluyamo. You are welcome, sir. The Secretary to the Council and the Registrar, Mr. C.O. Adeleye. You are welcome, sir. The Chancellor of our Exchequer, the University Bossa, Mr. Adeshoba. You are welcome to this program, sir. And the University Librarian, Dr. Robert Awoyemi. You are welcome, sir. The lecturer, once again, is Professor Abraham Adeniyi Taiwo. Congratulations, you are welcome to this program. And by this side of the divide, I would like to recognize the presence of our deans of various schools of study. We have the Dean School of Earth and Mineral Sciences, Professor Yekin Abiodun Anifowoshe. You are welcome, sir. The Dean School of Physical Sciences, Professor Adebola. You are welcome, sir. The Dean School of Computing. Sorry, please. Yeah, the Dean School of Computing, Professor Boniface Kayode Aleshe. You are welcome, sir. Professor Michael Olufemi Ashamo, Dean School of Life Sciences. You are welcome. Professor Saliu, representing the Dean School of Engineering and Engineering Technology. You're welcome, sir. Professor Simon Oke, Dean School of Logistics and Innovation Technology. You're welcome, sir. Dean Student Affairs, Professor David Olariwaju Oke. You're welcome, sir. We have the Dean School of Postgraduate Studies, Professor Bello Oluayo Olusoji. You're welcome, sir. We have the Dean School of Agric and Agricultural Technology, Professor Oluwatoyin Faramade Oludansi. You're welcome. We have the Dean School of Basic Medical Sciences, Professor Victor Okoliko. You are welcome. We have the representative of the Dean of School of Engineering and Engineering Technology, Professor Saliu. You're welcome, sir. And Dean School of Environmental Technology, who is equally the Dean School of the Inaugural Lecturer, Professor Hasik Olaniyi Aje. You are welcome to this program. To this end, I would like to invite Madam Vice Chancellor, Professor Adeniyi Taiwo Oladiji, FAS, for her welcome address. You're welcome. Man.
The Deputy Vice Chancellors, Academic and Development, Registrar, and other Principal Officers, my Lords, spiritual and temporal, top government functionaries here present, the inaugural lecturer of today, Professor Adeniyi Taiwo, deans, directors, and heads of department, especially the Dean of the School of Environmental Technology, distinguished members of Senate and congregation, eminent scholars and friends of the university, gentlemen of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It is with great pleasure and profound sense of honor that I welcome you to the 163rd Inaugural Lecture of the Federal University of Technology, Akure Futa. I warmly welcome our spiritual and traditional leaders, top government functionaries, captains of industries, friends of the university, and the entire staff and students of the university. I heartily welcome the immediate and extended family members, friends, and well-wishers of the inaugural lecturer. I felicitate Professor Abraham Adeniyi Taiwo on this academic milestone. May I, at this juncture, request the inaugural lecturer to please rise while I present his citation. Abraham Adeniyi Taiwo was born on the 16th of February 1961 in Dengi, Plateau State. He had his elementary education at Ekwa Primary School, Jos, Plateau State, between January 1969 and June 1975. Thereafter, he proceeded to Baptist High School, Jos, Plateau State, for his secondary education, which he completed in June 1981. He gained admission to the University of Jos, Nigeria, where he obtained both Bachelor of Science as well as Master of Science degrees in architecture in 1987 and 1990, respectively. He bagged doctoral degree in architecture from the Federal University of Technology, Accra, in 2009. Professor Taiwo has published many articles in both local and international peer-reviewed journals. He is a reviewer for academic and professional journals, which include the Polymath Journal of the Moshood Abiola Polytechnic, Abeokuta, in 2007, ASRCHES Journal, Nigeria, in 2008, Sage Journal 2013, and Professor Taiwo has supervised over 25 masters and 13 PhD students to completion. He has served as external and internal examiner at many undergraduate and postgraduate examinations, as well as external assessor for professorial cadre. He has attended many local and international conferences, and he belongs to many professional bodies, including the Association of Architectural Educators in Nigeria. He's a member, Nigeria Institute of Architects, Architects Registration Council of Nigeria, and Archon Council member. Professor Abraham Taiwo has served the university in many capacities, some of which are: he was Subdean School of Environmental Technology, Federal University of Technology, Akure, from October 2005 to February 2008. He was member, University Admissions Committee between 2006 and 2008. He was member of the University Academic Quality Assurance Committee between 2010 and 2012. He was acting head of Department of Architecture, from January 2015 to July 2017. He was chairman, Business Committee of Board of Studies, School of Environmental Technology, March 2010 to September 2012, and then April 2014 to date. Professor Taiwo is happily married, and the union is blessed with God-fearing children. Housing, besides providing shelter and raising quality of life, has long been viewed as a basic human need and is considered to be an integral factor of the overall socioeconomic development of any nation. The lecture of today will be focusing on sustainable houses for all through the public-private partnership scheme. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Professor Abraham Taiwo Adeniyi as he presents the 163rd Inaugural Lecture of the University, titled Sustainable Housing for All Through Public-Private Partnership, Math or Reality. Thank you, Professor Taiwo.
The Vice Chancellor, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academics, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Development, the Registrar, other principal officers of the university, deans, directors, heads of departments and units, my lords, spiritual and temporal, fellow academics and professional colleagues, distinguished guests and friends of the university, gentlemen of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, great Futarians. I give glory to God Almighty for giving me the opportunity to stand before you this day to deliver the 163rd Inaugural Lecture of the Federal University of Technology, Akure, and the 5th from the Department of Architecture. The lecture is titled Sustainable Housing for All Through Public-Private Partnerships, Myth or Reality. The previous inaugural lectures from the department were delivered by Professor Araela, 2005, Professor Lotua, 2009, Professor Fadamiro, 2010, and Professor Bushote, 2012. My sojourn into academics started when my father had to move me from a village called Dengi Kanam in Plateau State in the late 1960s. He moved me to my elder brother's house to stay with him and to be educated. There I was, and later I was admitted to Baptist High School in 1976. And by 1982, I was admitted to study architecture in the University of Jos. There, I had an uncle named Dr. John Olaniyan in the Department of Geography and Planning. My uncle engaged me in drawing maps and collecting data for his research work. Later on, I was given opportunity by the principal of my secondary school, Reverend Dr. Musa Bawa, to teach technical drawing and mathematics. I worked under Mr. Jesse Uzuegu, who would always call me Prof, and I quietly claimed it. He saw far into the future. In 1993, after acquiring some professional experience from an architectural firm in Abuja, the urge to go into academics came in strongly, and I did apply to the Department of Architecture, University of Jos, and also Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University, Bauchi, ATBU. By April 1993, that of ATBU worked out, and I worked there for 8 years before transferring my service to FUTA. Rationale for the topic. I have chosen the topic, sustainable housing for all through public-private partnership, myth or reality. It has been my research drive centered around delivering housing through public-private partnership, particularly for the low-income citizens. The importance of housing or houses is stressed in God's word. In Deuteronomy chapter 8, verses 11 and 12, it says, "Beware that you do not forget the Lord your God by failing to keep his commandments and his judgments and his statutes, which I am commanding you today. Otherwise, when you have eaten and are satisfied and have built good houses and lived in them." Building and living in a good house are essential parts of what makes a man's life satisfactory. Building on the above scripture is the hierarchy of needs proposed by Abraham Maslow in the 1940s. Housing is the third necessity of life after food and clothing. The Vice Chancellor, since housing is a basic need, one wonders if decent housing is achievable or is realistic. Or is it just a myth or utopia? A significant part of the global population lives in conditions without adequate access to essentials of life, including clean water, electricity, sanitation, and medical facilities. The world needs housing for an estimated 3 billion more people by the year 2030 to accommodate rapid population growth of the world. Housing for all is therefore a wonderful mission whose focus should be more than just providing housing. It must be sustainable. Sustainable development and housing. Sustainability is a societal goal that relates to the ability of people to safely coexist on Earth for a long time. The 1983 UN Commission on Environment and Development had a big influence on how we now live. It used the term sustainability. The Commission's 1987 report, Our Common Future, defines sustainable development as that which meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet their own needs. Almost 30 years after, a global agenda to achieve Sustainable Development Goals, SDG, was adopted during the UN General Assembly in 2015. There are 17 goals in this new agenda shown in Figure 1. SDG 11 addresses sustainable cities and communities, which this lecture focuses on. The goal seeks to make cities inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable, and this includes 10 targets measurable through 15 indicators. Safe and affordable housing. Target 11, subsection 1 of SDG 11 focuses on affordable housing. The target is that by the year 2030, there is access for all to adequate, safe, and affordable housing and basic services, upgrade of slums. Affordable housing is that which is deemed affordable to those with a household income at or below the median rates by national government, local government, or recognized housing affordable index, BATA 2010. This means that the definition of affordable housing may change depending on the country and the context. In some contexts, affordable housing may only mean subsidized or public housing, whereas in other cases, it may include naturally occurring affordable housing or affordable by different income levels from no-income households to moderate income but cost-burdened households. Sustainability in housing. The Vice Chancellor, sustainable housing recognizes the interrelationship between sustainability, sustainable development, and housing. This work involves a spectrum of considerations along the 4 dimensions of sustainability. These are environment, social, cultural, and economic. UN Habitat 2012. The term sustainable housing is often used to describe housing that emphasizes energy conservation and renewable energy resources, environmental protection, and other factors, such as creating less waste, providing opportunities for material reuse and recycling, taking advantage of new and natural and lowering life cycle and costs. Taiwo and Sumaila, 2004. Box 1 shows the considerations that constitute a sustainable house. The concept of public-private partnership, PPP, Public-private partnerships are arrangements between government and the private sector entities to provide infrastructure, community facilities, and related services. Such partnerships are characterized by sharing of investments, risk, responsibilities, and rewards between the partners. The rationale for this partnership is the need to harness the combined strengths of both the public and the private sector to establish complementary relationships on the premise that both sectors have unique advantages in specific aspects of service or project delivery. Housing Agenda 1996. The roles and responsibilities of the partners may vary with the projects and forms of partnership adopted. Problems of housing in Nigeria. There is a high rate of urbanization in Nigeria. The demand for adequate, decent, and affordable housing units outstrips the supply, among other basic infrastructural facilities. The magnitude of housing shortage in Nigeria, just one aspect of the housing problem, has largely been a guesstimate. The 1991 National Housing Policy, which shows that 1 million new housing units were required by the year 2000, the 2004 National Housing Policy draft puts homeless persons at 60% of the entire population. This translates to the deficit of about 14 million housing units for the urban and rural areas. The country's deficit, the country's housing deficit, as at December 2018, was estimated at a staggering 20 million units, which is about 15% increase from the figures in January 2015. It was estimated that about 21 trillion naira will be needed to finance the deficit. The Vice Chancellor, Akure, like other urban centers, experiences open housing poverty. Olotua 2005B showed that the average number of rooms occupied by a household is 1.29, while the average room occupancy, that is the number of persons per room, is 4.2, as it is indicated. The United Nations standard for housing occupancy in Nigeria is 2.20. The Nigerian government itself stipulates 2.0, while the World Health Organization prescribed between 1.8 and 3.1, Okoko 2001. Trajectory of government's efforts in housing delivery. Governments all over the world are directly and indirectly involved in matters concerning housing, its provision, regulation, and control, development and administration. In Nigeria, the involvement of the government in housing dates back to the colonial era, and this has since continued. Olotua and Bobadoe, 2009, asserted that the involvement of the public sector, that is the government in housing in Nigeria, has been more about policy formation than housing delivery. Despite huge budgetary allocations to the housing sector, very little was achieved in terms of meeting specific targets in housing construction. Mogalu, 1987, Atolagbe, 1997, Jiboye, 1997, Fadairo and Taiwo, 2009. The reasons include the wrong perception of housing needs of the low-income earners, houses that are poorly rooted in diverse climatic, cultural, and socio-economic environments, undue politicizing of government housing programs, high costs of houses built for the low-income people, and insensitivity to the operations of the private sector in housing delivery. Olotua and Ajayi, 2008. Evolution of the private sector participation in housing. Private sector participation has been a highlight of Nigeria's housing policy. The 1991 National Housing Policy sought the mobilization of the private sector as the main instrument through which the severe shortage of shelter will be tackled. Awoshi Ila, 1995. Effective implementation of the private sector's presence in the policy was, however, stalled. Buckley et al., 1994, noted that the key measures advocated in the policy counteracted successful private sector development. A new housing development evolved in 2002 from the document produced by a presidential committee on housing and urban development. The features of the policy influenced the establishment of an institutional apparatus, such as the Federal Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, restructuring of the Federal Mortgage Bank, and formulation of Business Development Department in the ministry. This department dealt with partnership issues. A public-private partnership was therefore set up to engage in projects where the public sector was meant to merely play the role of a collaborator, facilitator, supervisor, etc. Adegun and Taiwo, 2011, Taiwo, 2014. Much earlier, the United Nations in 1976 had recommended integration of both the private and the public resources in a framework, in a policy framework. Agbola, 1998, encouraged the government to resist the urge for direct housing construction, but provide leadership in creating a conducive macroeconomic environment for the effective involvement of the private sector. In PPP housing arrangement, the private sector is expected to perform all the development tasks, such as design, finance, and construction of the housing units. The public sector will normally contribute to the land, provide counterpart funding, and determine the housing type and selling price. Academic research and contribution to the field. In this section, the Vice Chancellor, I will show some of my notable contributions to the field of housing provision. Housing condition compelling the need for the private sector intervention. Taiwo, 2015, surveyed the physical characteristics of the federal housing estate, Shagari, here in Akure, to examine its condition and to know how the private sector can support subsequent housing projects for low-income public servants. These buildings were constructed particularly for the low-income and the middle-income workers through the government's earlier national intervention. Figures 1 and 2 show the one-bedroom semi-detached and the three-bedroom semi-detached buildings. The findings show that more than half of the respondents belong to the middle income. This might mean that those actually allocated the houses in the estate were low-income earners but have risen to up in the academic ladder. Architectural education in Nigeria, the curriculum and impact on housing. The goal of architectural education is the attainment of a humane and responsive environment. In this regard, there is an overarching need for architectural education to address the deplorable situation of the human habitat in Nigeria. The schools of architecture have over 100 courses to choose from in formulating their programs. Thus, the emphasis on housing courses varies from one school to another. In many schools of architecture in Nigeria, courses on housing studies are not even included in their programs. In FUTA, for instance, out of a total 250 credit units taken for the bachelor and the master's degree, only 2 credit units are taken as housing, on housing in a course titled Housing Seminar. Housing is a major component of architectural design studios in most schools of architecture, beginning with the elementary study of the basic unit of the house and accumulating in extensive mass housing projects. In FUTA, the design of residential buildings is done as part of the design studio in the 2nd, 3rd, and the 5th year. The Vice Chancellor, the curriculum of architecture, though studio-based, should inculcate considerable research input into its postgraduate programs to prepare graduate students for a productive academic career. Concern for the environment is imperative in sustainable housing. This is particularly important in the face of climate change occasioned by human activities. Adeniyi Taiwo, Olotua, and Fadairo, 2011. Low cost, low carbon housing materials and construction. Sustainable housing incorporates environmentally friendly and community-based practices. It has been estimated that buildings contribute 40 to 50% of greenhouse gas emissions globally. Low carbon technologies have a vital role to play in a green and sustainable environment. Housing development should be based on sustainable principles, which could be applied in the design, construction, and operation of the building. Adeniyi Taiwo, Olotua, and Fadairo, 2011. Developing countries, particularly Nigeria and some African countries, are considering earth, that is laterite, as a suitable material for building construction works because earth is freely available and endowed with remarkable qualities. Araela, 2002. Stabilized compressed earth bricks, SCEB, is a modified form of earth now commonly used for building construction. The SCEB can stand as the best alternative to ordinary and unsterilized bricks. They are made from a mixture of earth or soil, sand with cement or lime as the stabilizer, and water. The percentage of cement or lime is 5 to 10. It is compacted into a highly density block and then cured. Taiwo et al., 2012. The earth bricks To make impact on housing sector, they must be widely preferred to any basic building material. The preference of housing material is a function of many factors, such as cost, availability, technology, psychology, and government promotion. The Vice Chancellor, earthen materials also offer savings in terms of operating and embodied energy. The operating energy of a building is the amount of energy consumed by that building to satisfy the demand for heating, cooling, ventilation, lighting, equipment, and appliances. Embodied energy is used in the production and distribution of construction material. Architects can specify materials with low energy implications. Plate 3 shows the production of stabilized earth bricks, while plate 4 shows the stocking of the stabilized interlocking earth bricks. Cement bonded composite boards can serve as suitable construction material in housing development. The raw materials for board production are available and affordable. Cement bonded particle board is a value-added wood product made from the combination of 2 or more raw materials, such as wood particles, agricultural byproducts, with cement as a catalyst. The excellent properties of cement bonded wood make it useful for ceiling, walling, roofing, flooring, cladding, partitioning, etc. Adeniyi and Taiwo, 2010 and 2011, use wood and grass stems, agricultural waste, cement, and calcium chloride as raw materials in the production of cement bonded products. First specimens of the board were cut to determine the strength modulus of rupture, modulus of elasticity, thickness swelling, water absorption, linear expansivity, and accelerated aging. Table 4 shows mean values for these variables. This experiment shows that the cement composite board production is an alternative building construction material. If the government and the public accept its use, the PPP arrangements can support the mass production at affordable prices. Public acceptance of the public-private partnership in housing delivery. The acceptability of the PPP housing delivery route was examined through a survey of public servants across the 3 tiers of government, Taiwo 2003. Table 5 shows the acceptance of the shift from government housing policy to the PPP. Over 83% believe that mass housing for low-income public servants need to shift from the government to the private sector. Housing finance in public-private partnership. The Vice Chancellor, in another study, Taiwo et al., 2014, explored financing mechanisms for housing in a PPP arrangement. Table 6 shows over half of the respondents, 61.9%, sourced for finance from government mortgage banks. And this was followed by other respondents, 26.8%, who also got loans from commercial banks to purchase their building, but at a higher rate. PPP contribution to housing, lessons from Akure case. Adeniyi and Taiwo, 2011, studied housing schemes developed under the PPP initiative in Akure. As of the time of the study in 2009, there were 7 housing estates built through the PPP initiative. Table 7 shows that a total of 286 dwelling units were delivered through the PPP initiative over a period of 5 years. This number, however, represents a mega 11.61% of the 2,464 units target in the various schemes. The performance was poor and reminiscent of previous public sector-led achievements. Affordability conundrum. Affordability conundrum. That is the challenges in affordability. The Vice Chancellor, notwithstanding the contributions of these schemes to the housing stock, affordability is elusive. The cheapest housing unit in the estates is 2-bedroom semi-detached unit developed and priced at 2.8 million as at 2008. See Table 7. This unit, though the cheapest, was not affordable to the low-income earner target group. Table 8 shows the salary earned by workers in the public service of Ondo State and maximum loan obtainable for mortgage. This means that no employee in public service could or can officially afford these units. They are thus excluded from the housing market, which was initially created for them. The setback on improved home ownership through public-private partnership generally, not just in Akure alone, can be linked to some factors. The first is the continued public sector dominance in the partnership schemes. Access to land and finance is directly controlled by the government. Whenever there's a change in governance, there is usually a lure on the private investor side. Macroeconomic problems in the country have also restrained the private sector's active involvement in housing, particularly for the low-income groups. At times, bureaucratic bottlenecks in administrative and regulatory procedures also present barriers. The Vice Chancellor, the cultural disposition of Nigerians towards mortgage finance for house ownership is another challenge to a fruitful public-private partnership in housing development. People usually show apathy towards the kind of housing design available because many households feel it does not meet their specific cultural and socioeconomic requirements. Beneficiaries' involvement in PPP housing delivery. Public-private partnership has been used in many low-income housing schemes across the country. Boxes 1 to 4 provide information about 4 of such schemes. Adeniyi Taiwo, 2011, examined 4 of such schemes to understand the involvement of the beneficiaries' involvement. We found that the organizational structure in the schemes excludes participation of the beneficiary group at the meaningfully decisive stages. That is, the management, financing, design, construction, and assembly of components. The Nigerian Labour Congress was to stand in for civil servants in one of the schemes, but that did not materialize. It means that these interventions dwelled on supposed needs by the government and implemented by the private sector without the involvement of the beneficiaries. The architectural design and layout of the units did not take adequate cognizance of the incremental characteristics of low-income housing, a factor which could have been addressed with timely and appropriate beneficiaries' participation. Notable changes were observed in certain components of the houses already occupied, since the developers put in place in the houses do not meet the beneficiaries' household varied social needs. They had to alter various aspects of the building. The case for the beneficiaries' involvement, community participation aligns with the top-bottom approach rather than bottom-top approach rather than the top-bottom approach on PPP in housing delivery. Involving the beneficiaries meaningfully indicates a humanistic process of relying on social, economic, and cultural roots while responding to the beneficiaries' higher level of need. The potential of beneficiaries' involvement in circumventing corruption inherent in construction projects in Nigeria must be acknowledged. The Futa housing experience. The Vice Chancellor, housing challenges nationally and locally downscale to some members of Futa housing, Futa community, this community. Providing adequate housing through the cooperative housing credit loan scheme of the Federal Mortgage Bank is a well-conceived idea. It carries the DNA of public-private partnership for housing delivery to the working class. Why am I saying it carries the DNA of the public-private partnership? Before the project started, the cooperative was told that they must find plots of land, and the developer that is going to work there must also build at least 5 3-bedrooms with his own money to be sure he can handle the project. Before, and after that, that was when the government now released loan for the construction of the other housing units. In Futa Housing Cooperative, the Futa Housing Cooperative has its imperfections, just like any human organization or anything, but it has contributed to the reduction of housing deficits here in Akure and in Nigeria in general. As I speak to you, there are 162 housing units on ground with over 100 occupied and fully subscribed to through the cooperative scheme. These are spelled across 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, and 4-bedroom bungalow typologies of dwelling units. A neighborhood sprang up in the process, and a new brown community was born. The ensuing camaraderie provides a great vista of fresh togetherness, communal experience, companionship, and a great sense of satisfaction. See plate 5. The project, while well conceived from the concept to delivery, was successful in a way, and it has met with some disappointments in some other ways. Notwithstanding the challenges, it illustrates the cooperation, that cooperation between the government sector and the non-state actors through public-private partnerships are important for housing delivery. The federal government's efforts must be supported by various state governments and corporate private organizations in the provision of land and infrastructure. That way, the combined efforts may ultimately lead to sustainable housing for all. Conclusion. The Vice Chancellor, my different studies and experience in the field show that public-private partnership is not a myth, but a reality. It is affirmed that participation of the private sector has made contribution and still has potentials to improve housing delivery in Nigeria. The Futa Housing Cooperative Society stands as a nearby testament to the power of such partnerships. There are, notwithstanding, areas that need to be fine-tuned in public-private sector arrangements for future success. Recommendations. The Vice Chancellor, in the light of this presentation so far and the preceding conclusion, the following recommendations are offered as possible means of enhancing effective housing delivery through partnership between the public and the private sectors and related approaches. Number one, the government should renew collaboration with the private sector to reposition the housing sector for improved and efficient housing delivery to Nigerians, especially the low-income public servants. Number two, the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria must be reorganized to enable her to collaborate with Building Research Institute and explore cheaper and sustainable building materials. With this, low-income workers can be guaranteed better affordable housing. Number three, there is the need to restructure existing partnership arrangements to incorporate beneficiaries' inputs as exemplified by community participation. This participation would not be an end, but a means to an end. That is the provision of mass, decent, and affordable houses. Number four, it is necessary that all memoranda of understanding between the public and the private entities should contain a meaningful place for representation of the beneficiaries and should be implemented to the letter. Number five, under the public-private partnership initiative, the public sector should be given, the private sector should be given conducive conditions in terms of obtaining loan funding, particularly for housing delivery to the low-income earners. Number six, there is also the need to expand the mode of acquiring dwelling units to include those operating in the informal sector. These people, normally they do not contribute to the National Housing Fund or are normally disposed to take other formal means of housing. Number seven, to further strengthen housing delivery through the public-private partnership, administrative bottlenecks must be removed or reduced. And lastly, architectural education has a role to play in the development of sustainable housing. It is necessary to increase the housing content in the curriculum, as the case is with the new core curriculum minimum academic standard, CCMAS. Acknowledgements. The Vice Chancellor, I place on record my profound gratitude to everyone who has made it possible to be here and those who are also watching online. I give God the praise for making it possible for me to be alive, even to deliver this inaugural lecture. I thank God because he's been my sustainer. He's been my keeper. And he who keeps Israel neither sleeps nor slumbers. I wish to express my gratitude to the university management under the able leadership of the Vice Chancellor, Professor Adeniyi Taiwo, Oladiji, and all the past Vice Chancellors. I thank my parents and my brothers for their love and investments in my life. My father, late Joshua Adeniyi Taiwo, and my mother, late Mrs. Comfort Taiwo, whom God used to give me life. My elder brothers, who invested so much in me, late Moses Adekojo Taiwo, Mr. Ezekiel Taiwo, Apostle Joseph Taiwo God. I appreciate all your spiritual, physical, and financial investments in my life. I appreciate all my teachers in the primary school and secondary school, on whom shoulders I stand high. My lecturers at the Department of Architecture, University of Jos, I acknowledge your contributions to my life. My PhD supervisors, Professor Latunde Araila and Professor Abiodun O. Oluchua, I will ever remain grateful to these two scholars who held my hands and led me through the thick and the thin of the doctoral degree. Professor Joseph A. Father Miro, thank you for your mentorship over me. I appreciate my HOD, Dr. Hezekiah Ayola, and all the staff of the department for your supports, too many to mention. My dean, Professor Isaac Ajay, and the past deans of the School of Environmental Technology. I appreciate all of you, and I acknowledge all my colleagues in the School of Environmental Technology, FUTA. I appreciate both academic and non-academic friends of mine here in FUTA who took their time to be at this inaugural lecture. I sincerely appreciate Professor John Adeniyi, who encouraged me to come to FUTA in 2001. Thank you, sir. My friends and associates from other universities that are here, from Abuad, Jabu, Bowen, Covenant, I thank you all for being here. I appreciate my professional bodies, the Nigerian Institute of Architects, and the regulatory body, Architects Registration Council of Nigeria, ACON, with whom I served and acquired tremendous experience. I appreciate the chaplain of Chapel of Faith, Very Reverend Dr. Chris God's Power, and all members of Chapel of Faith, FUTA. Likewise, Reverend Dr. Tayo Adedeji, and all members of the New Covenant Baptist Church, Obaile Housing Estate, Akure, you are all appreciated. I recognize and appreciate all members of the different mission organizations that the Lord has used to impact my life. I most appreciate my friends, my classmates in the secondary school, in Baptist High School. We were 36 at graduation, and 4 of us are full professors. And by the grace of God, I'm the first to deliver inaugural lecture. My in-laws cannot be left out of this appreciation. Thank you very much for being here. My beloved children, John Adeniyi Taiwo, Samuel Adeniyi Taiwo, Joe Kebet Adeniyi Taiwo, Timothy Adeyemi Taiwo, you are all special gifts from God to us. I love you all. My wife, Badero Rebecca Taiwo, I found you at a time when I was at a crossroad in my life, and you have appropriately filled that vacuum in my life. You have been a friend, a sister, a discipler, a mother, and a confidant. The journey of almost 3 decades with you have been very rewarding. Now unto the King, eternal, the immortal, the invisible, the only wise God, be glory and honor forever and ever. Amen. The Vice Chancellor, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your attendance and for listening. God bless you all.
Another round of applause for our lecturer. May we please take our seat. Thank you, Professor Taiwo, for the well-delivered inaugural lecture. At this juncture, we like to recognize some people in our midst. Please note that everybody is important, but for the purpose of protocol, it is our tradition to recognize some of the participants at this lecture. Let me start with Professor Robert Ogunduyile. He's a former Vice Chancellor, Olusegun Agagu University of Science and Technology. Thank you, sir, for coming. Also, our own Professor Z.E.A. Adeyewa, the former Vice Chancellor with Dimas University, former Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic Futa. Thank you, sir. Professor Lawrence Tolulope Akibogo is the former DVC Development here in Futa. Thank you. Long time no see, sir. Professor Olatunde Arayela, the former DVC Academic Futa. Thank you, sir. Professor Deji Rufus Ogunshemi, former DVC Academic Futa. Thank you, sir. Dr. Mrs. Modupe Olayinka Ajayi, former Registrar, Futa. Thank you, ma. Dr. Mr. Ayorinde Olurinde Ogoruku is the former Registrar of Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife. Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Williams Atoye is also the former Acting Registrar here in Futa. Thank you, sir. Dr. Mrs. Adenike Oluremi Abiolu, the former Acting Librarian, Futa. Thank you, Mommy. Professor Joseph Akinlabi Fadamiro is former DVC Development here in Futa. Thank you very much, sir. Professor Ademola Ayesomi is the former Chairman, Committee of Deans, Futa. Professor Ayesomi is a big man. Thank you for coming. Professor Moses Oludare Adewale, the former member of council, Futa. He employed all of us at a time. Professor Adewale, thank you for coming. Professor Olubode Kolawole Koriko, also a former member of council in Futa. Professor Koriko, we are grateful. Thank you for coming, sir. Professor Venerable Lassainde is a former chaplain, Chapel of Faith, Futa, and is here with Mama. Thank you, sirs, for coming. He is one of our living legends. Thank you very much, sir. Architect Professor Oriye is the former director of Works, Ekiti State University, Ado Ekiti. Thank you very much, sir. Professor Emmanuel Ayo Olajuyigbe, Director, University Advancement Center, Futa. Thank you, sir. Professor Mrs. Oladipo, she is Director, Center for Continuing Education, Futa. Thank you. Professor Olasalawu, Director, Quality Assurance Management Unit, Futa. Thank you very much, sir. Professor Joseph Borode, the former Director, Academic Planning, here in Futa. Thank you very much, sir. I've seen you. We also have in our midst Professor Amigo, is the Director, Center of Excellence in Applied Geology here in Futa. Mr. Johnson Esho is a member of Council, Ekiti State University, Ado Ekiti. Thank you, Mr. Esho, for coming. Professor Fagbemi, former Director, Step B and Accreditation, Futa. Thank you, sir. We are grateful. Professor O.A. Downsi, Director, Sestra, Futa. Thank you, Director. Mr. Fabusuye is a Director in Bursary. Thank you very much, Mr. Fabusuye. Mrs. Grace Ajayi, Director also in Bursary. Thank you, ma. Mr. Ishola Oyewole is from Lagos. Mr. Ishola Oyewole, we are grateful. Thank you for coming. Architect Festus Fawo, also from Lagos. Thank you, sir. Mr. Raymond Lama, Akure, Ondo State. Thank you very much, Mr. Raymond. Architect Wale Adelowo of Stagri Associates. Thank you, architect. We are grateful. Mr. Samuel Temidara Fagbola. Mr. Samuel Temidara Fagbola. We thank you. Okay, you are here. Thank you, Mr. Fagbola. Apostle Joseph Taiwo. Apostle, thank you for coming. Mr. Joshua Taiwo. Okay, thank you, Mr. Taiwo. Mr. Julius Olajesu. Thank you very much. We appreciate you. We have Honorable Taiwo also in our midst. Honorable Taiwo, thank you very much for coming. Professor Bayo Aborishade is the former Director of University Advancement Center. He is Olori Ebi of Futa. Professor Aborishade. You have to stand up for recognition. Okay, thank you, sir. Any other Olori Ebi is a counterfeit. We have members of the Nigerian Institute of Architects, Ondo State Chapter. If you are here, please just wave your hand. Thank you very much for associating with Professor Taiwo today. We also have members of the Chapel of Faith. If you are from the Chapel of Faith, please wave for recognition. I am part of us. Today also we have Mr. Samuel Taiwo, the son of the inaugural lecturer. Thank you very much for helping Daddy to achieve his mission. Miss Jochebed Taiwo is the daughter of the inaugural lecturer. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. We have somebody who the inaugural lecturer described as a sister, a discipler, a mother, a confidant, somebody that has been with him for over 3 decades. And the person he found when he was at a crossroad in his life, the dear wife to the inaugural lecturer, Mrs. Rebecca Taiwo. Thank you, ma. I think she deserves a bigger round of applause. Thank you very much, ma, for discipling our inaugural lecturer. We recognize the friends and members of the family of the lecturer, professional and academic colleagues of the lecturer. We also recognize members of the FUTA community. We thank the gentlemen of the press, and we thank the most important group of people here today. These are the great Futarians. Great Futarians, we thank you for coming. Thank you all.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor. Having come to the end of this inaugural lecture, let us rise and remain standing for FUTA and national anthems. Let us all remain standing for the academic procession of the Vice Chancellor in a reverse order. Everybody for coming. Students, please, for your entertainment, you are advised to proceed to Chapel of Faith. And our visitors from outside will be taken care at the foyer of this auditorium. Thank you for coming to FUTA. You're welcome.